not hard quotas, but soft targets that these universities have.
Academics are different because the goal is different.
All right, so we're on the same page. So we're already on the same page there. All right.
He really confuses me, man. He doesn't even do this for his NBA team.
Climate issue, we just touched on there. What about the diversity issue? Right. This is the one. This is the one where. And
what do you want to know?
Yeah, because you and I, for people who don't know, we were actually, this conversation came out of. So we weren't on social media, but we're in a Signal chat group, which is interesting. I find you could actually have better conversations there than somehow it doesn't work that way on social media.
Right, because you're not performing for millions of people.
Yeah, right? But also just the nature of like even the format. I don't know. That's something I got to think about because modern social media is not conducive to conversation, right? But healthy, productive discourse. For sure. But anyway, we had an exchange, all right? So let me give you, without using the word DEI, because it's just so tired.
You can use DEI, that's fine.
I don't like using it because it causes, especially for somebody I might disagree with.
I like using it. I got no problem with it, even though it pisses people off. That's what makes it more fun.
well, let's use DEI then, fine. So let's say in the name of DEI, right? Pfizer, this is the example I gave you. We started talking about it. Pfizer sets a target. You can call it a quota, call it a target.
Not a quota.
Pfizer sets a target, but it is a very precise numerical target. Now, and this is not picking on one company.
Well, it's percentage. It was a percentage, right?
They're in an industry that I know well, but this is representative.
And I know that industry well too.
Yeah. Right. So it's an industry we both know well, so we're picking this example, but this is not unique to Pfizer healthcare. It's true across every other industry.
IBM has done it. Others have done it.
Right. Something to the effect of, and you people can look up the exact what it is, but the punchline is 32% or so was the number for minorities in certain corporate vice president levels or above. I get it approximately right. Look up exactly what the details, but suppose it's 32% in vice president level corporate executives or above by a certain year in the future. That's a corporate target that they have set. It's my belief, right, that these types of demographic goals, if that's your basis for setting a target, that is incompatible with pure meritocracy. Where
absolutely not.
Yeah, and that's why I know you disagree, right? So give me your view.
Before he gets your view, I just want to know why they differentiated between quota and target. And I actually looked up the definition of quota. A quota is a limited quantity of a particular product which under official controls can be produced, exported, or imported. And the other definition is a fixed minimum or maximum number of particular group of people allowed to do something, such as immigrants to enter a country, workers to undertake a job, or students to enroll for a course. So let's use the second definition, a fixed minimum or maximum number of a particular group of people. How is that different from a target? Let's say I have my own company and my target is to sell 50% of my inventory to people who live in Maryland or live in California. Wouldn't that be similar to a fixed minimum or maximum? And wouldn't my objective be to reach the highest peak of my goals? How is that different from a company saying their target is to hire, let's say, 24% Hispanic Americans or 24% African Americans? How is that different from a quota of having 24% African Americans? Isn't the desired goal to have this amount of people? So in this instance, quota and target can kind of be used synonymously because my goal is to reach my target of this percentile, which is the same context of having a quota where you want to reach this target of a percentile. The only difference is that with a quota, you are borderline set at this percentile, versus with a target, you're able to say, well, we don't have a quota thing. It's just more leniency with the target, but it's still kind of the same thing. But let's continue.
Sure. So targets are one thing, right? They're not a quota. If it was a quota, you would be able to, let me take a step back. There are these things called EEOC reports. Right. Where
Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. That's what it is. Yep.
Right. Where they actually have to disclose the numbers for those vice president positions by male, female, white, black, Asian, other races, and biracial. Right. And so they have to disclose them. And not all companies do. They have to report it. They don't have to disclose. Not all companies do, but Pfizer does. And when you go and actually look at the numbers on the EEOC report, they're nowhere close to those targets. And in fact, in some years, they actually reduced the number of people you would think would benefit from DEI, right? Based off of the traditional DEI views.
And that's
Black
accurate.
Americans,
What you just said is accurate. It's fact.
Right.
So why bother to specify that target or goal in the first place? Because your point is they're not even meeting it. And you're right about that in many companies.
When you say they're not meeting it, that's just confirmation that it's not a quota. Because a lot of people will take that number and project that as a quota. Why would they do it? It's a quota, but they never meet it. None of the companies ever meet it.
What's the purpose of setting that goal on the basis of race or gender in the first place, Mark?
When you talk about portfolio management in your company, right? And you talked about you're going to have failures and you're going to have successes, and you probably had a target for your return on equity that you wanted to get, right? And so you said, I've raised this money, I'm investing this money, we're going to have hits and misses, and our target return is 23%. Same thing, right? Good companies look at their employees as capital, right? As intellectual capital.
Yeah.
So it sounds like to me he's basically saying legally we cannot have a racial quota. Legally, we will get sued if we say we are hiring 25% of this race. So what we're going to do is we're going to say it's our target. And within this target, we're going to do everything in our power except break the law to get this quota reached. I'm using them synonymously because they kind of are synonyms. My apologies. We're going to do everything in our goals to get this target reached. And when we don't get it reached, we can't get sued. Just because we put more resources behind this specific group of people, just because we put more initiative behind this group of people, just because we have more favoritism behind this group of people. And yes, I'm using these words because Mark Cuban specifically used the comparison of success and failure. He used the comparison of winning and losing, or going after something and not getting it. So yes, I'm using the term failure. I'm using these terms. It just sounds like a way out of saying we are kind of breaking the law. We are kind of being prejudiced against a group of people. It sounds like a way out, like a corporate jargon way out of saying technically we aren't discriminating.
And where you want to have a better portfolio outcome for your intellectual capital, there's certain things that you want to see happen. One of them is diversity. And now when I talk about diversity, and I've put this up on Twitter, that means going out there and just like you look for the best ARBs across all bio companies, right? You didn't care where they were located, looking for the best employee, the most capable employee means turning over rocks where other people don't look. And you probably found some of your best deals by looking where others don't look. And I found some of my best employees by looking where others don't look.
Why denominate? I agree with you so far, but why denominate it based on race? Why take this top-down category that and I'll tell you why it gets under my skin is, I think it causes us to be more divided when we see each other on the basis of our skin.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. Okay, so let's go to your point, right? Yeah. Let's go to your question. Let's just say I'm looking at a drug company, Roivant. How did you pronounce your company name?
Roivant was my first company.
Yeah. Roivant, right. So I have Roivant. And I recognize that for cancer drugs, they're all ignoring them. Everybody's ignoring cancer. So I'm going to set a target for cancer drugs because I know everybody else isn't looking there. Yeah. They're missing it. And so I'm going to go where these cancer drugs are being made, where they're not making enough an investment in them. And I'm going to go to focus, not necessarily focus there, but I'm going to extend my ARB reach and my look to include those cancer drugs from companies I think don't do a good job of figuring out the value in that drug. That is what D in diversity is. It's saying, look, there's a lot of women, Black, Asian, whatever it may be, people that I think are not being recruited. That there are a lot of people who may not have the best test scores from the best school, but they may have a lot of soft skills from their experiences. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to find.
What's the E?
Okay, let me finish this point, right?
Yep. We'll play forward.
So I'll get to the E, right? I'm going to go and find the best possible candidates that I can.
And this is my problem. You can do this without having diversity. You can do this without having DEI programs that discriminate against people. You see that last sentence I said? You can do this without having DEI programs that discriminate against people. You know you can still go to historically Black colleges and universities and recruit the students without it being under the premise of a DEI program. You can still go places that people don't usually look without it being under the premise of a DEI program. And I know Mark Cuban specifically knows this because he's actually known in the NBA for recruiting outside the NBA. Outside of America. A lot of his players, his best player is from across the freaking world. So you know this. You don't do that under the premise of DEI. So how come you can only recruit minority students who think outside the box or who have better soft skills or whatever under the premise of DEI? Why does DEI need to exist for you to do that? You can do that anyways. You could have did that 20 years ago. Nobody is saying you have to be under this premise. That's literally the only problem. Everything you're saying you do under DEI, you can easily do without DEI. Easily.
And they're going to compete with everybody else. Just like when you at Roivant, you compete with your cancer drugs, have to compete in potential return for the non-cancer drugs, right? And so in my diversity, when I go out and I look at this, I'm going to say this person, this woman, African-American woman who was from this small school that I've never recruited at, she's brilliant. And when I compare her to other people that I might hire, she's better. Now, this other person, African-American, another small school I typically don't recruit at, they may not be good enough. I'm not going to hire them just because they're black from a small school that nobody else recruited at. They have to qualify. So then when I hired this African-American woman from this small school, because she has amazing soft skills, maybe not the best test scores, that's where equity comes in, right? Equity means putting people in a position to succeed, giving them the tools that they need. So she might have soft skills I invested in this company called Scoutable, right? Scoutable.com. And all they do is they have people play these games. And when you play the game and thousands and thousands and thousands of people have played the game, it helps you it does, based off the results in the past you take, they'll compare them to other successful people in other vertical areas, right? Programming, bio, and they'll look for similarities. They'll do a statistical analysis and they'll say, look, this person who we found in the middle of nowhere doesn't have a computer science degree, but the soft skills that they have matches up perfectly to our best programmers. Okay. So we're going to take a chance on that person. And the equity is...
That doesn't even make sense. If you have a job for computer scientists, how in the world can soft skills possibly match up to that? He's really full of it. He is full of it. He's full of it. Because you have an MBA team. How come none of these business practices you use towards your MBA team? The reason you don't use equity, diversity, inclusion towards your NBA team is because you know deep down you want the best of the best. I'm not saying having someone with soft skills isn't important for a job. It's extremely important for jobs that require soft skills. But you're really going to sit here in my face. I'm an electrical engineer. I'm getting a master's degree in electrical engineering right now. I already graduated with a bachelor's degree in photonical and optics engineering with a minor of electronics. You're really going to sit here in my face and pretend like soft skills somehow leads to the same potential and functionality as a computer engineering degree for software engineering. That was the dumbest thing I probably ever heard you say. That is idiotic. I don't even understand how you can come to that conclusion. That was insane. I don't even think you believe that. But anyways, let's continue.
The E in equity says we're going to give them extra computer training because we know based off of the data that we're using, they're very capable in ways other people aren't going to find the diversity, and we're going to give them the tools to put them in a position to succeed. Whether or not they will succeed is up to the ability of us to train that person and up to their ability to live up to what we expect of them. If they don't, they'll get a chance or two like every other employee. They'll get a report from HR saying, here's what you got to do if you're not doing well. And you still have to compete and you still have to do well. So that's the E.
Here's my own just view on, getting to the best answers on anything, right? You got to try on the other side like a set of clothes, trying the best argument for the other side like a set of clothes. And if it fits, you keep it. And if it doesn't, you put it back on the rack.
You iterate. Yeah, you iterate. So right. Always iterate.
I appreciate a lot of, what you laid out. I think it's an interesting perspective. I'm doing my best to try it on. I'll tell you why, for me, it feels like it doesn't fit. Okay.
Sure.
is when I look at the results. Now, here's where you can measure the results. I'll give you a couple examples. So give you a couple examples in response. One is, one of the areas where you look at results of whether you believe you actually have a true meritocracy or not, where you could actually get the actual numbers to do this, is when you apply that same philosophy to the level of universities. So I know you're talking about it from the level of
Two different worlds. Okay. Two different worlds.
All right, so you do have different views then. You do have different views.
Oh, yeah. Look, I think I've said this online,
the number of kids who are like Asian kids who can't get into a university because they got a 1600 on their SAT.
Two different worlds.
Good at sports, good at musical instruments, and can't get into their safety school. That is a direct product of a lot of the targets, even not hard quotas, but soft targets that these universities have set.
Academics are different because the goal is different.
All right, so we're on the same page. So we're already on the same page there. All right.
What? He really confuses me, man. He doesn't even do this for his NBA team, and somehow academics are different when you brought up software engineering or coding, which is has a direct correlation to academics. I don't even understand what he's. I don't get it. I don't even know what he's talking about right now. What else could? How is that a different world? It's the same world.
So universities.
So you're agreeing with me that DEI. So first of all, let's make sure we're on the same page. You're agreeing with me that DEI is good for business.
No, I'm not agreeing with you there. I'm not agreeing.
I didn't hear any.
Well, because I was going to go to the universities, but it sounds like we agree on the universities. But let me.
Look, if it were up to me, universities have too much overhead.
So I think here's what I would say is on your definition of DEI and the way you define it, which I believe is quite different and far more sympathetic, to me at least, than the accounts that you might hear from other proponents of capital D, capital E, capital I. But on your telling of it, my pushback would not be that I disagree with a lot of what you said, but that it then makes DEI redundant. Okay, because if you're running a business, well, let's just go back to that sole metric that you evaluated in the first place, which is maximizing your return on equity. If that's your actual metric that matters, there are a million different targets that need to roll up into that.
Of course. And they're not mutually exclusive.
And of course, and it's different for different companies, right? So my view is it's got to fall out of the mission. It's got to be mission driven by the company. So every company.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So
of course it is.
If I may, right?
So and when you go ahead.
Yeah. Just to make sure we get the view on the table, because it's not the classical disagreement. It's just a slightly different type of disagreement. So let's say your company has a mission. Okay. I'll give you a good example. Actually, this will be very personal to me. Let's say your mission is that you're a steakhouse. Okay, and you want to serve your steakhouse chain, and you want to serve good, high-quality steak to your customers. Like any business, you're going to need different types of diversity to make your business successful. There are certain types of diversity you want, certain types of diversity you don't want. The kinds of diversity you might want people who are good wait staff, you might want people who are good at the cash register, you might have good managers, a good chef, okay. Even the kind of diversity you want, I would add a lot of diversity to the ranks of a steakhouse. I'll tell you why. Because I'm a vegetarian. I'm a vegetarian on principle. It's a part of my religious upbringing, but
I'm pescatarian. I'm pescatarian.
Right. So I don't believe in killing animals for culinary pleasure. It just happens to be a family belief of mine, and that I've raised in and that I raise my kids in as well. I respect the right of the steakhouse to go pursue its own mission. I don't think the government should be stopping them from doing it. But even though I would add diversity to the ranks of the steakhouse, I don't think that would necessarily make them better because it doesn't align with their mission. So every business has to act.
I don't know if this is getting anywhere. All I have to say is there's no real reasons, and what Vivek Ramaswamy is getting at is that there's no real reasons backed by data that helps after including DEI standards. I don't necessarily know if that's true. I haven't done research on whether or not it fully makes companies or corporations better. What I was discussing in this video was Mark Cuban's point specifically. I don't think he's making a lot of sense, and I also think he's being a little bit of a hypocrite. He uses DEI kind of as a toy. He doesn't really think it's the best business practice, and I see that when he runs his NBA team. He obviously doesn't do that when it comes to his NBA team. He wants the best players, point blank period. He doesn't care necessarily how they act. Probably does a little bit, but not really. He wants the best players. He probably cares like, oh, do they party? But that's not going to deter you from drafting a number 1, number 2 pick. Anyways, it's LFR Jojo, and I'll see you guys in the next one.